So in this video, I'm going to share a mindset shift I had many years ago. And sometimes I forget to use it, of course. But when I remember to use it, this mindset shift and approach to my goals, my dreams, and the outcomes I'm pursuing, it helps me to actually get there faster and with less perceived struggle or frustration in my mind. And that mindset shift is inevitability thinking. And what I mean by that is this. Think of any goal that you have. It seems to me that for the most part, whether in my own contemplation of how I pursue goals when on autopilot and how people pursue goals when on autopilot, we typically have a goal and then we try to figure out how do I get to it. And we try to map out the right path, the right way, and then we try to take this series of actions to get there, to get that outcome, whatever it is. And so if I were to use an analogy, it's like we're always reaching for it or we're chasing for it. So let's use the analogy here of trying to get a butterfly. In the analogy in the approach that I just mapped out, most people are going after their goals the way somebody might chase after butterflies with one of those big giant butterfly catching nets, where people lay in a meadow in a forest or somewhere. When butterflies fly by, you chase after them really fast and try to, trap them in that big giant net. Now, the way inevitability thinking works is as the following. Ask yourself, what is it that you would need to be doing? Who do you need to become? And how do you need to constantly keep showing up such that the goal or the outcome that you want would simply be a byproduct by default, inevitably? So if you were to apply this to fitness, instead of trying to get to this fitness goal of X, whatever X is for you, certain body weight, physique, appearance, etc., and then just trying to get there as fast as you can, instead of that approach, ask yourself, how do I need to address and implement my working out, my nutrition, my rest and recovery, and my lifestyle habits such that inevitably my goal will happen as simply a byproduct, a default inevitability. When you first think about that, it may sound like what I'm saying is you're going to do less and it's going to take longer to get there. However, here's one big caveat to getting there. You don't know what you don't know. And you don't know everything there is to know about accomplishing your goal and getting the outcome that you want until you actually have the goal or the outcome that you want. Until the very moment that you have the goal or the outcome that you want, there are always by default going to be things that you don't know. And since you haven't done it yet, you don't know what you don't know. That you do know. And we're really shitty, I think, as humans, being able to predict timelines around when we're going to be able to accomplish something. We, I think, grossly underestimate the amount of work that things will take, the amount of time that things will take, and if it's something we've never done before, it's impossible to predict the accurate timeline and the accurate amount of effort because, again, see aforementioned point, you don't know what you don't know. There's this chart about what happens when you start pursuing something new. I forget the name of it, but it looks kind of like a big dip, like a wave, and then a down trough, and then a big wave. And I think at the top left, it would say that at the beginning, you have uninformed optimism. So you're really excited for the outcome or the goal, the materialization of it, but you don't know what you don't know. So if you actually go from thinking about it and fantasizing about it to setting your foot on the path and pursuing it, you go from uninformed optimism to uninformed pessimism. Because rarely do you start doing something and it just works out, right? So you go from, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm excited for it, to putting in a bunch of time, effort, money, resources, and now you almost feel like you're in a worse off position because you put in a bunch of time, money, energy, effort, resources, and you have no progress to show for it. And you still don't know what you don't know because you haven't gotten to the outcome. So now you have uninformed pessimism, right? Now, if you continue and grind it out and grind it out and grind it out and learn a little bit more and iterate and and grind it out a little bit more and just keep sticking with it, you get to, I believe, what's called informed pessimism. So now you're starting to know some things. There's a lot of things you've now learned and you know that you didn't know, and you know that because you now know that you know more. And you can see some measurable progress. And if you continue, if you're one of the rare few that continues and pushes through and gets to your goal, you end up with informed optimism. So uninformed optimism, uninformed optimism, uninformed pessimism, informed pessimism, informed optimism. Since that's the cycle that most endeavors and goals and challenges and new things that we take on follows, and we know that, and we know that we don't know what we don't know, you're much better off wiring together a plan that assumes it's going to take longer than you think, it's going to cost more investment than you think, time, money, energy, resources, creativity. And you're going to probably deal with more frustrations and setbacks than you realize. So then you simply have to ask yourself, what do I have to stick to such that the achievement of my goal will be a default? This is where something like 75 Hard, one of the world's best, if not the best, mental toughness program that also happens to usually create a physique result as well, because a big part of this mental toughness program started by Andy Frisella, the owner and founder of First Form, a nutrition and supplement company. One of the things that that 75 Hard has you doing is it has you doing a set of 5 things every single day, day in and day out. And what happens is that instead of focusing on becoming more mentally tough now at a certain level, or focusing on getting to a certain physique now or in 6 weeks, whatever it might be, you simply focus on sticking to these core practices and disciplines every single day. In this case, for 75 days. And what will happen is progress happens along the way by default. So earlier I shared the analogy of most people pursue their goals the same way that people might chase butterflies with nets. The analogy being here that catching a butterfly is synonymous with accomplishing your goal. The other approach that you can have to catching butterflies, aka accomplishing your goals, instead of chasing with a net, which is a high effort, low reward approach, high effort, low success approach. Instead of that, build a garden. That's inevitability thinking. So planting and building a garden such that by default, it will attract butterflies to you because you have things in the garden that attract the thing that you want. And then that attracts birds and bees, and it's a virtuous cycle of attracting a bunch of things. So instead of trying to get to the physique goal or the target weight or whatever it might be, because you're at uninformed optimism, you're much better off saying, okay, for the next 100 days, I'm going to do these 5 things every single day without fail. Again, enter something like 75 hard. I've done 75 hard. I'm doing 75 hard right now, and this is my 6th time doing it. The analogy or the metaphor here of planting a garden is you say, what is it that I need to do consistently, day in and day out? Boring stuff, mundane stuff, discipline-based stuff, that if I just simply stick to it, I'll catch my butterflies. I'll attract my butterflies. I'll get to my outcome as a default. Inevitably, the butterflies will come. If I build a beautiful garden with the flowers that they like and the things that they like, the butterflies will come. If I show up every single day following a core set of disciplines and habits, like working out, dialing in my nutrition, rest and recovery, supplementation, by default, inevitably, the butterfly of physical fitness and improved health will come to me by default. If I show up every single day and create and post content that truly and genuinely helps people, and no matter whether I have a lot of subscribers or a few subscribers, I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it, I'm motivated, I'm not motivated, whatever the variables are that can pop up on any given day, I think I'm doing it right, I don't think I'm doing it right, uninformed optimism, uninformed pessimism, etc. I'm just going to keep posting content on a schedule that I commit to no matter what, and how I feel in any day. And I'm going to commit to, as an example, posting 300 videos. And I'm going to post, let's say, 2 videos a week. So until I post 300 videos at 2 videos a week, I'm not going to even reconsider deviating from this plan or this process. And along the way, by default, you learn what you didn't know. Do you see what I'm talking about? By building the garden, having the approach of building a garden instead of to attract butterflies, instead of chasing the butterflies with the net, by default, you learn what you don't know. Because remember what we said earlier, if you've never done something or accomplished something, by default, you don't know what you don't know. That's just the nature of life. You with me? So, because you don't know what you don't know, and you will only know everything there is to know about accomplishing a goal the moment and the second that you have accomplished the goal, you don't know how much not knowing you have to go through. Because you don't know that, you actually then cannot realistically predict an accurate estimate of timeline, effort, and resources required to get to the outcome, to the goal. So the only thing that you can focus on is daily and weekly habits, structure, and approach. Lifestyle changes, self-identity, right? And habits, intentions, structure, that kind of thing. That's the only thing you truly can focus. And then also what happens with this approach is that instead of measuring success based upon the gap between where you perceive yourself to be and where you perceive yourself to want to be, and therefore always being in a negative state by default, right? Because if you're saying, I want abs and big V-tapered body, or I want $1 million and I have $1, right? Or if I'm 50 pounds overweight, but I want to lose 50 pounds and have abs and have a V-tapered, upper body, there's a gap. And if you're constantly operating from I'm here, but I want to be there, that's a gap. And so that automatically puts you into a negative state where every day, no matter how much effort you put in, until you actually get to the outcome, you can't feel satisfied. So by default, and again, that's the chasing a butterfly with a net approach. So by default, you throw yourself into a negative state. However, if you say every single, like with 75 hard, if you say every single day, I'm going to do these 5 things, no matter what, and I'm going to measure success now by, did I do these 5 things every single day the way I said I would? And then when you do accomplish those 5 tasks, disciplines, habits in that day, and you check off those check boxes, you now have a surge of motivation. You have an increase immediately in your self-respect, in your self-esteem. And this creates positive momentum. Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy in the book, The Gap and the Gain, talk about this, where they say that is measuring progress backwards, so you're in the gain. So by identifying a list of habits, activities, changes, structure on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis that you need to make and engage in, such that simply by doing that, your goal will be an inevitable outcome based upon what you know now. And then you set your foot upon the path of pursuit of that outcome with the mindset of, I don't know and I don't care if it takes 30 days or 3 years. These are the things I'm going to do. Starting today, every day. You again then get to measure success based upon, did I stick to the things I said I would do today? And now you're in the game, because every day that you stack another day, this is another beautiful thing about 75 hard, is every day that you stack another day of I did it, I did it, I did it, what's happening automatically by default along the way to your ultimate goal as a sort of like side positive bonus is that your self-esteem and your self-respect elevate. They increase, they improve. And you actually start creating psychological momentum. And again, along the way, you are going through the uninformed optimism, uninformed pessimism, informed pessimism, informed optimism cycle, because you're taking the actions. And then what happens is, once you've taken a consistent set of actions that you believe based upon your best understanding today of what will lead you to having your outcome or goal as a default byproduct, along the way, when you learn what you don't know and you fill for those knowledge gaps, you can then make tweaks and changes to what your daily structure, habits, intentions, and practices are. If you've learned that there's something you need to tweak or change that actually is the more optimal or more aligned way of getting to your ideal outcome. And that's the process of planting and building and planting and maintaining a garden, as an analogy, that will then by default bring in all the butterflies that you want. So it's aligning who you are on a daily basis through your thoughts, and then subsequently your feelings, and then subsequently your actions, and then therefore subsequently your results and outcomes, which subsequently leads to your circumstances, and that creates a repeat loop. And that's either virtuous, going up, pulling you up, ever improving, or that's spiraling down, going down and descending, right? Heaven or hell. And it's that sequence. Circumstance. This is the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Circumstances lead to thoughts, lead to feelings, lead to actions, lead to results. Repeat. Circumstances, right? And the thing that you can control there immediately is thoughts. Change a thought, you'll change your feeling. You change your feeling, you'll change the action you do or don't take. You change the actions you do or don't take. You start changing your results and your outcomes. You change your results and your outcomes on a daily basis in small little ways. You begin to change your circumstances, and that creates a virtuous cycle, elevating into heaven, or creates a destructive cycle, descending into hell, metaphorically speaking. So that's inevitability thinking. And I have found that when I remember that, plan with that in mind, and then pursue with that model, apply with that model, it's less daunting and frustrating to get to the goal, partially because you're probably just expecting a bunch of bullshit, and that helps you deal with the bullshit when it arrives. But you actually have less frustration because you're no longer in this gap mindset. You're in a gain mindset, right? You're elevating your self-respect and self-esteem every single day. You're learning what you didn't know, and then that informs you to improve your habits, your intentions, your structures, and so forth. And this really interesting thing happens is you often get to the goal and the outcome faster than you actually thought you would. Once you know what you don't know. See, when you don't know what you don't know, you're like, oh, I can get there in 30 days. But once you actually get there and you've learned all the stuff that you didn't know, you're like, dang, I'm surprised I got here in 90 days. But if you hadn't set out with that mindset of doing what you got to do every single day as a set of habits and a core structure that should, based upon your best understanding today, lead you to your goal and your outcome by default. If you hadn't set out that way, you wouldn't have got there in 30 days or 90 days. It could be 6 months. It could, or like a lot of people, and like I've done many times, you start and then you don't finish, and you just have a graveyard full of half-started, partially baked ideas, desires, pursuits that never went anywhere. So that's inevitability thinking, my friends.